Today I wanted to talk about Social Security and Medicare. And the reason that I didn't pull up another video to discuss it is I can't find one where they give like the entire explanation. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make my own video about this and I'm gonna embed it into our class. And so I'm gonna zoom in on this a little bit. I know you can't read it very well, but Social Security was created under the Roosevelt administration in 1935, and then Medicare was created under the Johnson administration in 1965. And one of the big reasons that Social Security and Medicare are so important is because there's such a huge component of the budget. And so Social Security, you know, a lot of people talk about defense and how expensive that is. Social Security is the single largest line item by far, about $1 trillion per year the federal government spends in Social Security. Medicare, it kind of bounces around, but it's around $450 billion. And then if you were going to throw in Medicaid on top of that, Medicaid federal side is about $350 billion. And then if you add in Medicaid state, then that gets to around $750 billion. So with those three programs, that's about half of the U.S. budget. Well, it had been half the U.S. budget. I'm not sure where the U.S. budget's going these days because of COVID. But in any case, it's still a huge component of it. All right, so I wanted to talk about how Social Security and Medicare work. And for those of you who work, and I know most of you do work, you pay this FICA tax. And maybe you don't even know what that FICA tax is when you see the line item on your check. And it stands for Federal Insurance Contribution Act. That's what FICA stands for. And so when you're paying your taxes, you're going to pay your federal tax, you're going to pay your state tax. Remember, federal tax is a progressive tax, state tax is a flat tax unless you're going to be a millionaire in Illinois. And then you also have Social Security tax and Medicare tax. The portion that you pay in Social Security is 6.2%. And so let's say you earned $50,000, you would pay $3,100 into Social Security. You would also pay 1.45% of into Medicare. And so if you made $100,000, then you paid $1,450 into $145 into Medicare. Yeah, not $1,400. And so that would be like the portions that you're paying into that part of the programs. So with Medicare, you are going to be paying in 1.45%. And by the way, your employer pays on your behalf also 1.45%. Same thing with Social Security. You pay in 6.2% and your employer pays 6.2% also. And so when they're hiring you, just keep in mind, oh, they're not only paying like my salary and things like that, they're also going to be paying insurance. In Illinois, they're going to be paying unemployment insurance, and they're going to be paying this additional 6.2 and 1.45% as part of your pay package. And so those are things like, you know, taken into consideration if you're starting a business. So you pay into it, and then eventually you get to the age where you can retire. Right now, the earliest you can start taking Social Security is 62, and the earliest you can start taking Medicare is 65. But then once you get to 62, if you take it early, then you don't get as much per month. And right now, the average monthly payment in Social Security is $1,440, and so that's in 2020. The top amount that you can get, because they cap the amount that you can get in Social Security, is $2,850 a month. And so when you're paying into it that you're going to eventually retire and you're going to get that money back. And so it's not like it's some sort of a giveaway. You've been paying into it all your life and then you're getting some back. Now I will say, oftentimes people pay way less into it than they get back. And the idea is that you're paying into it now so that people who are on Social Security now are going to be able to get the benefit. And then when you get to that age, younger people will be paying into it also. Some people would sort of call it a pyramid scheme, which it sort of is in some ways. But in any case, the federal government does back it up. And so some other parts of Social Security that are important to keep in mind is that it may be people's only way of surviving. It may be the only money that they have coming in. You know, they paid into Social Security their whole life, but they never saved in a 401k, or they never saved an IRA, and they don't have any other savings. And so some people are living off of $1,440 per month, which, you know, I don't know, if your rent's $1,000, that leaves you $440 for everything else, you know, whether it's your phone, your heat, your electric, your TV bills. You know, people who are on Social Security, it could really stretch them. One thing that the Republicans and Democrats totally disagree on is this cap that they put in. And so the cap is, if you pay into Social Security on the first $120,000 that you make in a year, then you don't have to pay into Social Security anymore. And so let's take somebody like LeBron James, who makes $30 million a year. He pays the 6.2% on $110,000 or $120,000, and then that's it. He gets a 6.2% tax cut. And then the Lakers, who he works for, also gets a 6.2% tax cut. That's not the case for Medicare. It doesn't matter how much you make, you have to pay that 1.45%. And so for the average person, they're still paying, you know, because they only make $50,000 or $60,000 a year, they pay the full amount. But LeBron James gets that discount, which LeBron James seems to be a pretty good guy, so I'm not so upset about that. But I think the Lakers should pay that 6.2%. And so that's the part that kind of drives me crazy. But in any case, that's like one of the arguments that they have between the Republicans and the Democrats. Let's have these millionaires pay that full amount in. Now, of course, they are capped that they would only get that $2,850 a month, but if they're making that much, maybe they could pay in a little bit more. And so those are one of the areas that that you're going to hear people argue over Social Security. Another kind of interesting thing with Social Security is how it's built up over the years. You know, there's about 54 million people who are on Social Security now, and of course that's because we've got this older population, we've got this population's living longer, and then we have not as many young people paying into it. So it's going to be an issue at some point. Right now, we have enough money coming into Social Security that we can pay off the benefits and not have to worry about it. But in the next 10 to 12 years, we're going to get to the point where we don't have enough money coming in. And in that case, if Congress doesn't act before that, there's an automatic 20% cut in Social Security. So just wait until we have to cut Social Security for these senior citizens, and they're going to go crazy because we've got these cuts coming their way. And then, of course, they're the ones who vote, and they're going to show up to vote everybody out of office. And so keep that in mind as far as this Social Security goes, that it can really be important to, you know, these senior citizens' lives. And, you know, just like your grandparents are probably on it, and your grandparents don't want to have this cut in Social Security either. That's how Social Security basically works, is that we pay into it and then others later on pay into it. The other thing that we're going to hear from in a couple of weeks is how pensions work. And pensions in the state of Illinois are a true issue because the expense of them has continued to rise and we haven't paid for it on the way up. And so that's going to be a real issue that we have to take a look at and think about, in addition to, of course, Social Security and the burdens of Medicare, because when you hit 65, then you're basically in this Medicare program. So that's a little bit of an overview of Social Security. You know, I encourage you to probably read a little bit more about it. I'll put some links in there to track some more information about it because it's so important to the federal budget. Remember, it's the most expensive line item in the budget.